morning, good evening, everyone. This is Luda Kopikina with GAI Insights. Welcome to Daily AI News, where we rate carefully curated 6 to 7 articles, essential, important, or optional, saving you time and pointing you in the direction of the main trends. Today, I have Adam, John, and a special guest, Kevin Petrie, Vice President of BARC. Welcome, Kevin.
Great to be here. Thank you.
And welcome, everyone, to the first show of 2026. Okay, so let's start with the first article. All right. And the first article is from Wall Street Journal. The name is OpenAI is taking on Apple's App Store. It's got a long way to go. Adam, what did you think about this review?
You know, I'm going to give this article an important overall. It is in the Wall Street Journal, and it is covering what a lot of people need to understand about it. I wouldn't quite say it's essential because basically the message is it has a long way to go. And I appreciate this article doing a pretty well balanced view and not hyping things up and really helping reset and level set people's expectations about the capabilities of what's currently rolling out and available in the OpenAI app store, right, that they have now in ChatGPT Pro. And they do call out a couple of examples. There's like OpenTable, where you can book reservations online for dinner, and TripAdvisor to help with travel. But in most of their examples, it seemed like mostly what these app stores are doing right now is redirecting people to the actual app for the full capability. And it does have a long way to go, but I think it's an important subject, and people need to understand competitively what OpenAI is doing if they don't already. And I was on the border, honestly, between optional and important, but being Wall Street Journal and fairly high profile, I bumped it up as an important article.
Wonderful. Kevin, what did you think?
I agree with Adam's assessment. I think that there are a few important points to make. One is that OpenAI views Apple as its primary competitor, not Google. That's an important factor to take in mind. I was a little surprised to see it, but I think it underscores OpenAI's overwhelming focus on consumers, or strength with consumers. And that draws an interesting contrast with Anthropic, which today, largely through its coding capabilities, is more of a B2B play. But I think overall it is not an essential read for today's AI users. I think it also underscores a little bit some of the strategic, I don't want to say indirection, but I think that there are a lot of things OpenAI is trying to accomplish very quickly, and the clock is ticking on them financially. They need to generate profits.
Yeah. By the way, the audience, if you're interested in following along and seeing the articles that we are talking about, they're on gaiinsights.com/articles. John, what was your take on that?
Yeah, totally. I'd give it important for the reasons that Adam said. I will tell you, if I were a GPT investor, which I'm not, and I would be, OpenAI investor, I would be really worried. I mean, the idea that they're going to compete with Apple in this way just doesn't make strategic sense to me, in terms of, for lots of reasons, including the fact that, as commented in the article, that, the hardware still matters. I mean, Apple's got complementarity between their physical devices and the software and so forth. So I think it's an important thing for people to understand. I think it's a dumb strategy, but we shall see.
Yeah. Okay, Paul, what do you think?
We have the stone-faced Paul. I don't think he's. I think he's frozen. It's kind of it's a taxidermic version of Paul that we have up there.
Okay, let's give it an important, even though it sounds like a lot of you were between optional and important. But let's do an important on this one, and let's proceed to the next one.
Yep. Okay. Next one, very interesting. We've got
John. If you can bring your screen back up as well, please.
Yes, we'll do. Just a second.
Yes. So the next one is on the crunched use case, and that's
it's with Crunch. We've got this is an announcement on the Anthropic website about Crunched that essentially helps with the creation of complex Excel models using a combination of Sonnet and Opus 4.5, and claiming significant delivers up to 50% time savings and so forth across different modeling tasks, especially for investors and consultants.
Okay, thank you, John. Kevin, what was your thinking about this article? How did you rate it?
Well,
First,
it's
summarize it. Yeah.
very interesting. Ultimately, I would rate it important, not essential for AI leaders. I think that there are a few factors to weave in here. John had a great summary. One is that this is ultimately a company, Crunch, that is promoting its product. So that's a different kind of case study than looking at an end user and whose business is not necessarily tied up in promotion by participating in a case study. I do think it underscores that Gen AI models have come a long way when it comes to handling numbers. Their core skills with math have been a thorn in the side, a lot of these model capabilities. If we can take at face value some of the capabilities and productivity improvements cited here, it looks like the models have come a long way in that regard. It might well be they're using machine learning in the background more than a full large language model. It does help you envision a new world that's a pretty broad market, which is all these Excel folks. Excel is such a part of professional life in so many segments and so many functions.
Absolutely.
It really does underscore the degree to which AI can both improve productivity in existing projects, but then expand the scope of projects. It's talking about how it could help some of these FinServ teams take on projects that previously weren't worth their time. So I would say important.
Okay, important from Kevin. What did you think, John?
Yeah, I also had it's important. Look, it's a very thin article. It's just a product announcement, product claim. But because Excel is before the LLMs, you want to talk about vibe coding. Excel was the closest thing we have to it for like normal. I mean, Excel is the coding language of most non-coding people, right? When you think about it, I know Dan Bricklin pretty well, the guy who invented VisiCalc, VisiCalc, Lotus, Excel kind of thing, and he saw it as programming language for sure, and that happened to have a very useful representation in terms of a spreadsheet. So I think this is super important. A ton of time spent here. Very thin article, product announcement. I usually wouldn't give much to a product announcement, but Excel from Claude. If this thing's any good, this is very important for folks to understand. So that's where it came down.
Okay, thank you, John. Adam, what were your thoughts?
I was in the optional camp, but I could support important. I think they make good points about how prevalent Excel is. So what a big deal this is conceptually as a use case. But as John said, it is a little thin in terms of the details of how they did it. And it seems to be the trend from Anthropic in these use cases. They report some incredible numbers, but if you wanted to go do it, other than, I should use Claude, you're not given too much to work with, which continues to disappoint me. So I was probably going to be optional as a use case, but important more as John and Kevin both said, in terms of the broader understanding of the significance of this kind of capability and what it's going to unlock for business.
Yeah, my understanding of this domain is there are other add-ins and so forth, and this, isn't the best across the board, but for these particular tasks, which I think are going to be a lot of where the automation happens, investment bankers, consultants, that kind of stuff. This is the best one in the stable right now, is my understanding.
Yeah, and Crunched specifically optimized for these very complex Excels that have multi-tabs, cross-linking between them, optimizations and formulas between the spreadsheets. So it is optimized for these narrow areas.
I remembered the one other trend here that I wanted to call out is they talk about it being a forward deployed model. And we hear more and more talk about forward deployed engineers. And it's interesting to talk about conceptually having the models out there in the business where we need that intelligence and how that's going to fit into the larger scheme of really bringing engineering closer to the business process through this sort of solution.
And by providing the industry specifics behind the Excel, they contained the hallucinations and eliminated many of the errors that they saw before. As Kevin pointed out, it might be machine learning happening in the background as well. Okay, we're going important, Paul.
Let me jump in and I'll stir things up. I know I'm pretty
Super optional.
No, I'm actually essential. So let me make a
Good
case.
morning. Happy 26th.
Wow.
So
Go, Paul.
on forwardability, I've already forwarded this to 4 people that work in finance industry, have heavy power user. Second is Anthropic. This is indicative of where I think Anthropic's going. Anthropic is excelling on the software coding codex. The next, we've talked about IDE moving to all the different departments. The next logical one over there is power users on Excel. And they're already pushing hard into that. So that's the second one. Third one is, I've talked to a lot of AI leaders where the finance department CFO was very skeptical because last 6 to 8 months, they tried OpenAI, one thing on Excel, and it stunk. So most Excel-centric people say AI stinks. It has no value, and it's never going to have value with multiple tabs and everything else. This shows where it's going. And then lastly, it's a really good example of this kind of AI next to you while you work. And we're seeing that in Claude Code and everything. And this is just moving that same mentality in Excel. So for all those reasons, even though it's a product announcement, I thought it was an exemplar article on terms of this trend that AI leaders need to consider and definitely forward.
Yeah. So, and Ashish comments that this is the first time Anthropic showed a case that is outside of their own product. Yeah. So it's very interesting, right? And I can back Essential. What do you think, Kevin? John?
I like the upside down comment from Vivek. My boys are obsessed with Stranger Things. Yeah, I would still say important. I could be talked into Essential if that's the Democratic wave.
John, what are your thoughts?
Yep. No, I think for all the reasons Paul said, I can go there. Yep.
Okay. Adam, okay, Essential?
Nope. Do it anyway. No, I'm kidding. I'm with Kevin. I'm still in the important camp. Paul, I understand that's affordability, but it just, okay, great. Everyone's telling me I should be using Claude. Great. Someone else is telling me.
Perhaps you're the tiebreaker.
Well, not that. It actually demonstrates that in these complex cases, in very complex industries, this can actually work. So this is a working case. That's what Paul articulated, that demonstrates.
Yeah, that's why I had it as important, not option.
Okay. All right. Essential it is. Democracy wins. Let's proceed to the next one.
All right. We've got this article from the folks at DeepSeek that looks at manifold constrained hyperconnections, which is part of the training, the notion of having a manifold shape in the context of training for AI models. And this is essentially going at a modification to that training method. And I was on this one, and I think that this is important if you're, this is essential if you are investing in foundational model, really training and building models or doing foundational research, which is, very few of our folks. If you're really doing a lot of training and modification to existing models, might be important. But I think for our AI leader in general, this is an optional read. It's deeply technical. I only got a quick look at it, but it continues to impress me that the folks at DeepSeek in specific and China more broadly are publishing more and more articles that are leading to efficiency and effectiveness of training as well as inference. And, this is, I think that, algorithms like this will probably be built into the current and next phase of models, which will mean for a quality of inference output, you're going to have less consumption of inference and energy, which I think is a really interesting combo. But I would say for this one, I would give it an optional for our AI leader.
Okay. Optional from John. What did you think, Kevin?
I agree, optional, highly technical. There is that small subset of AI leaders whose companies are looking to train models. That subset might grow some given releases such as Amazon Nova Forge at reInvent, which helps companies do some of the pre-training and training of models themselves. We'll see whether that's cost effective and becomes broad. But regardless, I'd say for the majority of AI leaders, optional.
I would disagree, actually, because from the technical perspective, this is a tremendous innovation, and it pushes transformers at large, really all of the transformers to the next level of performance. So you can train them sustainably and yeah, because of the edges being stable now. So they created a new way using mathematics. So the manifolds, so they essentially put the edges onto the manifolds to make them sustainable and stable. I think it's a major innovation. It's very technical article, and so we can't really recommend it as essential, but I probably would put it as important innovation. Adam, what did you think?
I had this as optional. I
Too much.
couldn't see an AI leader being able to pull enough out of it in terms of how it's going to have any, even 6 months from now, maybe. Yeah, I can see it being relevant, but at the moment, it's not. It's just too fresh. You're right, Luda. It could be very.
Yeah, it's important for OpenAI and Anthropic as they think about.
Yeah, exactly, but probably not for our leaders.
For our audience. Okay, optional it is. Paul, optional. Okay, optional it is. Let's proceed to the next one, John.
All righty. So for our next one here, we've got a very short article that deals with the issue of the disappearing middle of software work.
Okay. Adam, you were on this one. Could you tell us what it is about and what you think?
Look, so I don't know. I think a lot of his observations were a little too obvious. Maybe it's that I'm too close to it and it should be important, but I felt it was an optional article. He's basically saying, look, most of the work in building software used to be between the idea and the execution, where you had to actually build the whole thing and come up with a team and do all this stuff. And that is effectively collapsing to zero, and that we can go from ideation, all the stuff around marketing and deploying it, from having the idea, is that all that stuff in the middle is going away. And that we need some new ways of working around it very conveniently. The author, Kari, is the CEO of Linear, which is a company that does exactly that for businesses. So in many ways, this article ends up being a thinly veiled product announcement, marketing piece in some ways, explaining the importance of what they have to offer in market. I think it has importance. I think it didn't quite bring enough to the table beyond that. Yeah, software is collapsing and it's getting faster and easier to go from an idea to a working product. But it was optional for me.
Hugely important point, though. It's the definition.
Yeah, as I said, I might be too close to it.
The definition matters, and the better you craft the definition, the faster you can put the software together and test against it. Paul, what were your thoughts?
I think it's important. I thought it was interesting characterization. Other than AI leaders supporting the dev team's aggressive uses, which I think every dev team who's awake is now doing this. It's certainly not essential.
Okay. John?
I had it as optional.
And Kevin?
I would say optional, self-evident to AI leaders that are paying attention.
Okay. All right. We'll go optional. And for the listeners, if you're listening for the first time or experienced listener to our show, as you know, we very much welcome your insight. please share whether you agree, disagree, what you think about these issues we're discussing in comments. We really appreciate it and would like to make it as interactive as possible. Okay, so optional this is. Let's proceed to the next one, John.
Yeah, here we've got a thing by Philip Trammell and Dwarkesh Patel. Philip is a economics student at Stanford, PhD, and Dwarkesh is, among other things, a blogger. Makes the point that he's saying that, hey, Thomas Piketty, the guy who wrote Capital, which basically said, look, if you don't have income redistribution, unless growth happens is higher than returns on capital, then you're going to have a concentration of wealth, to vastly oversimplify Piketty's argument. And then there are a bunch of critiques of Piketty's argument, basically saying that, hey, look, if except for these kind of cherry picking data and so forth, and that actually the amount of economic return to capital has been relatively stable over time. And then, but then he's saying that actually, if AI is a more direct substitute of capital for labor, then the Piketty effect could in fact happen, and we'll have more concentration of wealth. And then the two of them go through a number of ideas around how to not have that happen through either redistribution through taxation, especially with a focus on inheritance and charities, and the idea that more and more part of the equilibrium argument against Piketty is that investors can invest in the same kind of things that whether you're wealthy or poor, you can aggregate small amounts of capital and get access to those. They're saying that no, actually there are these private markets with private capital, and whether these institutions are owned by charities or owned by individuals, it's going to be easier to have essentially separate markets hived off that get these economic returns of the AI substitution of capital for labor, and therefore equilibrium will only occur there, not in the broader market. So given all that, I was going to give this an optional because I think it's overly complex to make a pretty straightforward point, which is that AI is expanding the realms of where capital will substitute for labor. I'm not sure I agree with their critiques of Piketty in general, but the idea that AI without either complementary investment in public good and or tax and redistribution mechanisms to spread some of the wealth will lead to vast increases in inequality. I believe that to be absolutely true and important from a societal perspective. In terms of what an AI leader would do with this, I think this is 2 zip codes away from things they worry about. I think in terms of input to a policy group for governments or maybe the charity part of a big organization, but I'd say optional for our AI leader.
Okay, thank you, John. Kevin, what did you think this is an impact for AI leaders?
I've always had a fascination with economics. I was a TA in grad school and minored in undergrad, and so I find the topic interesting. I did find this article pretty darn long, and like John said, made it overly complex. For the AI leader, it is definitely optional. I did not see any clear takeaways for AI leaders to help them achieve their goals this year.
Adam, agree?
Yeah, if someone can tell me what kind of role within an organization would need to understand this article, I can make sure that I never have that job. This is the part of AI. I mean, yeah, John makes some good points, but yeah, this is an overly complicated way of making an important point.
Yeah, I think the answer is government affairs for financial services institutions.
Yeah, but it's so,
Okay.
it's really very esoteric. Paul, you would probably, I actually rated it as triple optional. Paul, where were you?
I'm triple optional, but for people who have not been through or seen kind of academic policy discussions from sophisticated academics, policymakers, econ, you just saw an amazing riff from John earlier today, but triple optional for the leader.
Triple optional it is. Okay, let's proceed to the last one. John, if you could.
Right. For our last one, we've got my least favorite presentation mechanism, which is BCG and their horrible interface that, anyway, I won't go on that. It basically says that product teams are making AI sales agents smarter and vice versa. I really, this is an area that I think is super important. I'll let somebody else opine first. Many years ago, and over the years, I've actually studied the use of expert systems in AI at the point of sale, and it's got profound impacts in terms of realized sales, even when you control for things like wealth of the client. So I think this is a super important area and going to be the first area after cost reduction. I think sales is the next killer app. And so important area here.
Okay.
Let me know. I'm ready to opine on it later. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. So let's give Kevin an opportunity to talk about what he thought.
Yeah, so very, very interesting concept, and they do flesh it out a fair amount. I kind of like the scroll up interaction, but
well, there you go.
I won't fight for that for the presentation of the idea. But so BCG has an idea, and they've clearly worked with some companies on this. The chief product officers can, as John said, accelerate the sales cycle and increase the win rates. And their example starts with consumer app. I think a lot of the focus later on is with the B2B market. Those are different segments, and so that's one, I think, structural issue with the overall argument. But they point out that if you have these agents that are interacting with trial users, among other things, that can start to interact with them, that can start to nudge them along the path to getting to full mainstream paying usage, then you could do quite a bit to improve the scale of your software deployments. And that's certainly true. And I think that you can also gather a lot of intelligence about your users in order to improve product design, in order to improve your go-to-market efforts. All great stuff. But the challenge is that the survey that they have shows that most software companies think they would do this in 3 years. So this is not around the corner. They do have a few examples of folks that are doing it today, but the challenge is not the size or the compelling nature of the opportunity, but rather the complexity of incorporating these agents into your business processes. That's true across the board. That's a gating factor. But I think this is not underscoring. To make this essential, you need to say, okay, my peers are doing this today. I better get started. And here's what I can learn from them. What this is saying is this is a good idea. Let's think about it, but it's not going to help you meet your goals for 2026. So for that reason, I'd say it's important and not essential.
So you rated it as important. Where were you, Adam, on this one?
I don't know. Maybe I'm just in a mood, but it was optional for me. It seemed to say a lot of really, really obvious stuff. And it was stuff that you probably could have said 20 years about chatbots with machine learning for the most part. Like, oh, the experts on a subject are probably the best ones to get the subject matter for the AI to chat about. Like, they're the ones who know their product. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
that's kind of how it works. The product managers must own the content that powers the AI. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't get enough away from it to really make it useful. Garbage in, garbage out. Thanks. Yeah, that's kind of how it works. Like,
okay. So Adam was optional. I was triple optional because they took a very important subject, like what John said, and specifically focused the topic on product-led growth companies. So and focused on how would you actually use the bots for this type of company. But then it fell very much short on delivering, on saying something important. John, where were you on this one?
Yeah, optional. Look, product-led growth for me is like forward deployed engineers. It's like, forward deployed engineers is, business analysts, which have been around for, 50 years. Product-led growth is, people buy your shit and then they buy more of it. It's like, it's a ridiculous distinction, in my opinion. They've got a fantastic ability. They've got all these product managers. And what do they ask them? And what do they tell us about? When will the full sales process be completely automated? and most of them are saying, well, not completely automated. That's not the interesting thing. The interesting thing is for all these product managers for complex products and stuff, where can you use intelligence to upsell? Where can you use intelligence to support your salespeople? Where can you use intelligence for, post-sales resale? I mean, I've spent a lot of time in this area. There's fantastic areas, and it's like somebody, brought them a cart of, fantastic meat, vegetables, and stuff. And what do they serve you for the meal? It's like, burnt broccoli. It's like, give me a break.
Okay.
Optional.
Okay, optional for now, unless Paul, you disagree and put it as essential.
No, definitely optional. I think another reason for optional, if you look at the recommendations, they're beyond obvious. Don't forget to eat your carrots, Adam.
Yeah,
broccoli. That's another quote for the John Sfielklug growing.
It's like when I was teaching, at Harvard Business School, this piece of software went around, which was you put in consulting buzzwords and it generates the thing out there. That's what this is like. You just put it all in a buzzword blender and
out it comes. Okay. As we're preparing the scorecard, any announcements, Paul?
Yeah, a couple announcements. Learning Lab is back from hiatus for holiday. So tonight, the showcase is I'm going to be going over how we use ChatGPT to analyze sales transcripts. So walking through that process here, and really interesting insights there, particularly around motivation of having AI tell us the motivation of the needs on the call. Second, we're also back to our free AI 101 training. Tomorrow at noon is Copilot, and Thursday is ChatGPT.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paul. So today we have one essential, one important, and the rest are optional. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Vivek and Ashish, for commenting. We'd like the audience to comment as well, the rest of the audience to comment as well. Thank you, Kevin, for joining, and we see you all tomorrow.
Great.
Thank you all.
Kevin.
Bye-bye.